We are Synergy Bonus, three guys who like to drink and talk about gaming. All types of games. Today we're coming at you just in time for Halloween. We're finally pulling the pin on Vampire the Masquerade, focusing mostly on the revised editions. No.
Damn!
Maybe later. Today.
Have you even played Bloodlines?
A little bit.
Okay.
Bloodlines was awesome.
Today we're focusing on the tabletop version of the game, specifically revised edition, or 3rd edition if you want to be sneaky. But before we get there...
So we don't have to calculate THACOs anymore.
Wrong.
3rd edition.
Wrong. What are we drinking, Spoonie?
I don't know. What are we drinking? Actually, we're drinking a local, well, semi-local.
Appropriately enough, and you'll understand why in a minute.
It's a Great Lakes Brewing Co. Nosferatu Imperial Red Ale.
Vampires for the vampires.
To my knowledge, they're based out of Cleveland.
Don't be afraid of things that go hop in the night. Oh, I'm already terrified. Hop in the night. Rich roasted malt flavors haunt the shadow of an Imperial Red Ale's bitter teeth. This is going to be abysmal, isn't it?
Have you ever had it?
I have not. This is...
yeah, I struggled through one the other night at game.
Okay. So,
Anyway,
I mean, it smells good.
Greg is correct. His Great Lakes Brewing is Cleveland.
Yep, because when I went out to visit Jordan, I think we went to one of their bar tap rooms.
The Elliott Ness, if you ever drink Great Lakes, is
then
delicious.
the Commodore Perry.
Commodore Perry.
The Burning River, I didn't really care for.
Ooh. It's
That started off good, and then the hops kicked in.
Yeah. Although I gotta say, I really enjoy the fact that good old Nosferatu actually is on the bottle.
Shrek.
Max Shrek, yep, of the movie of the same name. Well, we don't know. It might be Willem Dafoe from Shadow of the Vampire.
And Greg is
William DeFriendly.
continuing his white girl trend.
Lean in, Google.
Pumpkin Shandy, because it's in season and it's one of my few vices I have.
It's in season.
Besides the rest of my vices.
Like he was mentioning a little bit before we started recording here, what would make that better is a shot of
Fireball.
Shot of Fireball. I haven't been drinking, I promise.
He's just been working a lot.
This is the first thing I've had to drink today, and it's well earned.
You haven't even been having water or coffee?
I had coffee this morning.
He lies.
You know, it's delightfully smooth. It's got a great mouthfeel.
Nice. Like Travis was saying, it's good. It's really very hoppy.
I don't think I'd go out and buy this again, but if somebody were serving it up, I wouldn't decline it either.
You didn't buy it.
The point stands.
If I'm going to go for a red ale, I'm probably going to go for a Killian's. Not going to lie.
Yeah.
Or a homebrew.
Yeah. All right, but Vampire.
All right.
A favorite in our little community of friends here, I'd have to say. And the internet seems to...
It has a fan base.
It does have a fan
It's
base.
a pretty significant fan base. It was...
Flagship.
Yeah. Very much the flagship, and depending on the source that you're talking to or reading, potentially White Wolf's first major game, even though chronologically Wraith the Oblivion was published first. And the whole thing in turn was taken after White Wolf Publishing acquired the rights to Ars Magica, but we'll get into that at a different date. So they started at White Wolf Publishing, although they kind of shot themselves in the foot right around 2004 when they retired all the main lines in emphasis of the New World of Darkness, now Chronicles of Darkness, Vampire the Requiem, Werewolf the Forsaken, and a whole bunch of other games that nobody likes. Yeah.
Also known as New World.
Now, like they said, they're distancing. They don't want the new and the old anymore. It's now Classic and Chronicles.
New World and Old World. Classic,
Good and shit.
Classic is Old World. Mm-hmm. And probably I think the stuff that I find I enjoy the most. And we probably played the most.
We played a lot heavy because we're a very lore intense kind of group. And
more nerds.
Good Lord, is there a ton of lore in the classic World of Darkness. That was the big beef with Chronicles of Darkness, is that they touched up and polished it, really streamlined and did good things with the mechanics of the system.
And took out everything
but they
good.
completely discarded all of the lore and said, here's a toolkit, make your own lore.
Which is fine and dandy.
Somebody once made the comparison, and I fully agree with this. Old World of Darkness, specifically like Vampire the Masquerade and so on, is Windows. It has a ton of awesome features that you're never going to use, but they're nice to have there. And it's got some bugs, and it needs a little bit of patching here and there. But it does good things, and it plays all the games. New World of Darkness is Linux. You can do anything you want with it, but you start from scratch.
And you're on your own for everything.
You're on your own for everything, and it probably doesn't play most of the games you want to play.
However, once you do get it up to what you need, it's more efficient than Windows.
Yep.
As far as New World to Old... As far as New World to Old World goes, the New World vampire is Vampire the Requiem. And in order to build a vampire for that, you have to build a human first, which is the standard World of Darkness rules for New World.
Another marketing idea that they had that was terrible. I see what they were doing, and they shouldn't have.
I like it to an extent, though.
You have to have the core book to build a human to play any of the other games, and then you add a template. Which
that was the problem. I bought Mage the Awakening, didn't know I needed World of Darkness, and then I had to get World of Darkness.
I like it
and
to
I
an
like
extent.
World of Darkness.
Because it makes sense, like, when you're building a vampire. Well, at one point, you were a human.
Right.
So, what were you before you were embraced? Then, like, look, if you have, like, so many ranks in age or whatever, and all the points you get from that, then modify from there to represent all that experience.
Okay. World of Darkness is the base game. Vampire the Requiem is DLC.
Yeah, that's exactly it. As opposed
for
to
bucks.
Yeah, in terms of books and stuff that you'd have to buy or download or whatever. In the old world setup, we encourage you to build characters that same way. There's a whole section in the chapter of character creation that says, "Hey, who were you as a human before you got bit?"
And how many people actually think that way when they're generating a character? I do as well. How many people think, "Hey, I want 5 dots to dominate"?
But the big thing was you didn't have to buy a separate book. If I have just the core book for Vampire, I have everything I need to sit down and play well and some dice. If I have just the core book for Requiem, we can't make characters.
You know, and the worst part is I believe the core for Requiem is actually bigger.
It's thicker
than this.
More pages.
And then you've got to tack on the World of Darkness. And
it has less in it because there's no lore. It's all mechanics.
It's like, I like the idea behind the generation system, but yeah, it should all be in like one book.
Mm-hmm.
But anyhow, we're not here to bitch about Requiem today. That's a future date. We're here to celebrate the joy that is Vampire the Masquerade.
It's true. And I feel, unfortunately, with the fact that Requiem exists, we're always going to be comparing them because this is a far superior product to Requiem.
I also conversely feel that if Masquerade didn't exist, we'd probably be really gung-ho for Requiem because it's still a decent game. Internet hate commenced, but it is still a decent game, just not compared to its predecessor.
It's like the movie based on a good movie or book series or a game.
That's it, right there.
It's good on its own. If you have any love for the original source material, you will be enraged by it.
Yeah, it's like Starship Troopers. It's a completely enjoyable movie experience, so
long
as you never read the book.
I knew that was coming. So why don't we...
No, trust me, it gets worse. They want to make a mini-series out of Stranger in a Strange Land.
So why don't you touch on, some of the things
I just lost my humanity dots.
Okay.
Whatnot. Maybe we should start real quick with the character sheet and how it's very similar to the other World of Darkness games we talked about, like Werewolf the Apocalypse.
If you haven't seen us do, we did a short on Werewolf the Wild West expansion. Same idea. Your character sheet is broken down into your abilities and your attributes. The first block being your usual strength, dexterity, stamina, appearance, intelligence, and so on. And the second one being a list of different things that you can do, talents and skills, and so on. Each of them broken down with a rating system of, in the standard core set, 1 through 5, although in some of the expansions it goes 1 through 10 as a rating for how good you are at something. 3 dots being average, 1 dot being abysmal, and 5 dots being, among the best in the world. Olympian level, chess grandmaster.
We're going to even say like 1 dot represents some skill. 0 dots means abysmal.
Well, starting at the top.
I'm thinking
your
skills.
attributes. Like if you don't have any dots in strength, you're dead. If you don't,
or an invalid.
They automatically start at 1 though.
You automatically start at 1, with the notable exception
Nosferatu,
and a few of their spin-off bloodlines, sub-clans.
I think
Nosferatu.
Don't Samedi have the same issue with their...
I'm gonna propose a new thing that every time somebody says Nosferatu, we drink.
I'll never remember.
I won't be saying it very often.
All right. But
Greg wanted to play Nosferatu once.
Once? You're one of my favorite clans.
See? Greg likes Nosferatu.
Yeah, well, like I said.
This was a bad idea, wasn't it?
That was a totally bad idea. You knew that was coming.
I did. Anyhow, they are the
Unlike the
exclusion. They
Nosferatu.
start with no dots in appearance because they're supernaturally ugly.
Nosferatu are ugly.
Like Max Shrek here.
Which is better than the revised edition of Nosferatu, where they're just kind of something odd about them.
Okay.
Something creepy or off-putting, which again, we'll talk about that at a later date. That may have to be our next video. Anyhow, so you've got these 13 clans, which kind of sub in for your classes instead. Each of them focuses on a different stereotype of a classic vampire trope. The Max Shreks of the world are very much based off that movie. They're ugly, they're creepy, they sneak around in shadows. You get the standard Bela Lugosi, look into my eyes. These are what we're going to call the Ventru, and they're the clan of kings. And once kings and royalty kind of started dying out, they shifted their focus into the business world and merchant princes. And they're all about mind control and so on. The more rural vampires, like the Revenant of Coghlan Grange and so on, are represented in...
Svetoker, I think, is another...
There's another good... Yep, another famous one. Are represented in the Gangrel clan. Are very animalistic. They've got the shape-shifting into wolves thing going on. They've got the
supernatural resilience.
The children of the night, what music they make. And you go on down the line, and there are some other takes that are really interesting. You know, the Toreador are, despite having...
Anne Rice vampires.
Yeah, despite having a name that comes straight out of classical opera, they're Anne Rice. If you've ever seen Interview with the Vampire or with Vampire Lestat or Queen of the Damned, that's a Toreador.
If Anne Rice ran a vampire game, I see you chose a clan other than Toreador. We should talk about this.
Yep.
We're gonna fix that.
Yeah. And then they did an interesting thing where they expanded on some more non-traditional vampires. The big one being a whole group that are a dedicated cult following the ancient Egyptian god of evil and darkness, Set. Crazy snake cult, very Thulsa Doom, a lot of fun.
Needs bitches.
Knew that was coming too.
Yes, I did.
A lot of prediction here.
One that I find particularly interesting, they took the idea of Italian mobsters and really played off of the stereotypical Catholicism and turned that into a sort of ancestor worship-based necromancy. And so we've got the Giovanni, and it's every Sopranos episode you've ever wanted to see somebody bite into a neck.
With necrophilia.
Among other things. Yeah.
Because they're weird.
Yeah. For those of you that love your body horror vampires,
Tzimisce.
if you want to get very H.R. Geiger.
And also just Romanian
Very
folklore.
Romanian folklore to begin with.
I've had some fun with the Tzimisce and one of our player
I'm
characters.
trying to remember, wasn't Vlad Dracul in Universe supposed to be a Tzimisce?
In universe, they don't know what he was. A lot of clans claim him. There are a lot of folks that assume he was just a caitiff, and a very special caitiff, because he was
that powerful.
But because he had such a broad array of, he shows
abilities.
He shows evidence of dominate. He shows evidence of protean. He shows evidence of animalism. He shows, so he fits in a lot of different places. But yeah, overall 13 clans, and I'm sure...
Some of them make less sense than others, like the Ravnos.
The Ravnos were an interesting idea that was poorly executed because, for whatever reason...
Gypsy vampires.
Yeah.
Gypsy magic.
The writers of the World of Darkness series franchise as a whole have this odd, pseudo-soft racism against the Roma. They did a whole book, World of Darkness Gypsy, and it's cringeworthy in how it misrepresents Roma culture and history and so on. But it plays up to all of the wonderfully terrible Western and European stereotypes of the wandering thieves and baby stealers.
So even then, Irish rovers.
Yeah, that would... that would fall into the thing, except that the clan as a whole has a pretty hard and fast rule of don't embrace non-Roma.
Which pisses off the gangrel.
Yeah. But they become interesting because they're masters of illusion, and as you progress along their power path, those illusions start to become real.
This bottle cap is totally silver. You believe it's silver.
Something a little simpler. This bottle cap is absolutely a quarter. Here you go.
And that's how Fallout currency came to be.
Yep.
Nosferatu.
No, actually, there's a different thing about that, but that's a discussion for another day.
And then the Bruja, and I'm going to go with Bruja because in all of the video games and in the television show they pronounce
Bruja.
it Bruja, despite the fact that it is spelled Bruja, like the Central American witch. But it's actually supposed to be some sort of older dialect taken from Phoenician because their
Carthaginian
point of origin is Carthage and the northern coast of Africa.
Is it ever mentioned in Bloodlines?
It has to be. If there was any sort of an older Bruja, the first thing they go to
the major Bruja,
we were philosopher kings once before
the
major
Bruja you encounter.
You murder
Smiling Jack.
Oh,
well,
yeah,
you murder one too, don't you?
No, that's the prince.
No. I'm thinking.
Nines lives.
I don't know. There was some guy with celerity that I ended pretty quickly.
Well, celerity is not one of the high disciplines, so anyone can learn it.
Clan discipline, it's common. Anyhow, we keep talking about disciplines. That's
Also, he went down like a bitch, so I want to say it was a Toreador.
Disciplines are what in this system stand in for powers and abilities. They're your spells. They're your physical buffs. Ideally, they're the things that help you
get an edge.
Get an edge in your nightly hunting to go out and find living flesh to sink your fangs into.
Unfortunately, I feel like they all but take center stage some of the time.
Oh, pretty much. It comes off as superheroes with fangs, unfortunately.
It's just like in Hunter, your edges are much more important than any of your skills.
Yep. But we'll talk about Hunter another time.
Oh yeah, I'm just paralleling.
Because some of them do make sense. We mentioned the Ventru have this whole thing about, they make the eye contact, they roll your mind a little bit, and that makes it easier for them to feed on you and erase their presence.
Bruja do presence, and now you're terrified or awed by them.
Terrified or in awe, and so on. Or potentially they, there's a
use celerity and strength just
there's
to
the
hold
legends
you
of, vampires being supernaturally strong or running as swift as the wind, and that's where celerity and potence come in. These are the low ones. Then there are disciplines that come right out of left field. Like there's a whole
Demetsi flesh crafting.
Okay, yeah, the body horror stuff. I was going to go with the Tremere and their blood magic, the thaumaturgical paths, because their backstory is as a clan they were a group of mortal wizards who turned to vampirism as a way to study longer, really.
They're liches.
I like the Tremere.
Pretty much. They're very interesting and probably my favorite clan, actually. But, thaumaturgy, how many traditional vampires or Vrikalas or Natshira or whatever, of that, just create a ball of fire and throw it at you?
Rotrag!
Yep.
Oh, if you want to go with really weird stuff, the Salubri. Their whole weird shit they can do with their third
blood
eye.
Healing and all that, and the third eye, and it's very...
Valerian and...
Yeah. There's a sort of weird Zoroastrian twist to it and all that.
Which would make sense depending on if a lot of Christian mythos is tied into it. And in that region, Zoroastrianism was a major religion drawing from that area.
A huge part of the mythos of this game draws from Judeo-Christian mythology.
And Zoroastrianism was a contemporary.
And this harkens back to the fact that one of the primary developers and creators of this game was this fellow named Mark Rain Hygen. I hope I pronounced his name right. I have no idea. I've only ever read it. And he was the son of a Lutheran minister. And so we came up with a lot of concepts like the progenitor, the original vampire, is actually the biblical Cain, the first murderer. And his punishment for killing Abel was that he became the first vampire, and eventually he found a way to...
God, really didn't think this through.
Yeah, essentially, he found a way to pass the buck with some help from Lilith.
God really didn't think that through.
Yeah, well. So there's a lot of that in there, and there are schisms in there. Like we mentioned, the cult of the Egyptian death cult. They don't believe any of that stuff, except in some of the later source books and your video games. Cain himself shows up periodically. So,
it's only confirmed Cain if you're playing Malkavian.
He's the taxi driver.
Yeah, he is the taxi driver, and it's confirmed because your Malkavian begins losing his shit in sheer and utter terror as he realizes he is locked in a cab with Cain.
Yep. Or in the series of novels based on the material, if you get to the Gehenna book, which is the last book in the series, because it's literally
the end of the world.
The end of the world, as the vampires know it. It's a looming theme in this book is that vampires have been around since the dawn of mankind, or possibly before that. But right as the turn of the millennium approaches, because the book was or the edition that we're holding here was actually published in 1998. First edition came out in 1991. At the turn of the millennium, the end of the world is going to happen, and the term that vampires use is Gehenna. And in the novel, based on those happenings, one of the major iconic characters, Beckett the Gangrel, spends a lot of time just bumming around Europe and North America in the company of this guy who turns out to be Cain.
Makes sense, seeing as Beckett is an artist.
Explaining the term nodist. The vampires...
There's a lot
There's a ton of
terms and lore and everything.
The vampires have their own sort of quasi-religious biblical origin story revolving around Cain. And it's basically the gospel according to Cain. They refer to it as the Book of Nod because he wrote it in the land of Nod, per Genesis and all that, where after Cain kills Abel, he goes on to dwell in the land of Nod. And there are several characters who run around, a lot of them the iconic, right out of the character fluff thing there, who go around collecting pieces and fragments of this Book of Nod, because the whole thing has...
Cain's autobiography.
It's kind of since been lost to the sands of time and erased by various purges. We mentioned the Ventru sending the Romans to purge Carthage, because Carthage was a huge repository and library of Nodist lore.
And also, they were a rival power.
And also the Ventru are just kind of douchebags.
To be fair, if they're to believe, Carthage actually wasn't really a nice place.
Depends on who you're talking to.
Yeah.
If you talk to a Ventru, no, it was a shithole. If you talk to a Bruja, it was a pinnacle of learning and scholarship where vampires lived openly with their mortal thralls.
And also hung out with Baalai.
That came later. The Baalai heresy thing was definitely Ventru propaganda. At least if you're talking to a Bruja. Yeah. And I'm sure we're going to get some hate from that from the Baalai players as well.
You're a Baalai player. Go play fucking demon.
Baalai are a subclan or a bloodline, and they're intended to be
bad guys,
in-series, in-universe antagonists, but they tend to be like super popular as player characters, even though they were never intended to be. Because they've got that wonderful, angsty, I'm a special snowflake, last of my kind kind of feel. This game gives over wonderfully to angst, unfortunately, for better or for worse. It's got a very dark... They describe it in the text as a gothic punk feel. And it's a combination of, the traditional urban gothic, everything is in decay, politicians are all corrupt, the police are all in on the take, coupled with a sense of... But now you're a vampire, you're outside of all that, you can kind of do something about that, but not really, because there are older and scarier vampires that have a vested interest in you not doing something about that.
And also, you'll stop caring.
It's a very rage against the futility of it all kind of thing. And Rice, we already said. Decaying decadence is a definite theme of this. I'm actually going to lapse back into the technical stuff for a little while because there's just so much more lore and there's no way we can get it all into a single video. So keep an eye out for follow-ups, I guess.
Yeah.
But, see, Vampire, I said it came out in 91. It is notable because at the time there was a big shift happening in gaming culture where they were moving away from the dungeon crawly, crunch the numbers, clear the stuff in this room, get the loot, clear the stuff in the next room, get the loot, to a more open world, storytelling thing. Basically, it presaged what video games are doing under Skyrim and so on by almost 2 decades.
Vampire, the Skyrim edition.
And so as they were emphasizing roll over roll, because they were looking for a simplified system, we already said the system was dots as a scale of 1 to 5, how good you are at something. And if you need to make a roll, which is sort of artificially discouraged, the whole game is about acting out a situation rather than, okay, I throw a punch, the dice say I do 6 damage, does he go down like a bitch?
But like, and that I've seen that as a deterrent for some players too, because you've got some players that can really just think on their feet and roll with the punches that way, and then you've got someone who
inevitably
knows what they want to say, but it's not coming out right. So a dice roll is much better.
And inevitably, you're gonna get that guy who's never taken a bath in his life.
Deathraven, the Celtic Immortal.
Thinks that the stock market is an actual physical marketplace that he goes down to do a business.
Buy stock for his gun specifically.
Buy stock for his gun. And who wants to be this smooth-talking, charismatic, likable, Venture or Toreador. And there's no way he can sit and act it at the table. He just doesn't have that skill set.
Dominate.
But his character does, so you can roll the dice instead of having him try to stutter his way through a conversation. I'm thinking of one player in particular, and I'm not going to name him, 1, because it wouldn't mean anything to you guys, and 2, I don't want to out him on the internet. But in that emphasizing roll over roll, as they say, they were looking for a different system to simplify things and streamline the actual rolls when they were required. To that end, they looked to another system called Shadowrun, which
we may have talked about here in the recent past.
Twice, yeah. And
min-maxing the game.
Yeah, and they looked at that system and went, "We could make this even easier and more simple."
Just up with the D6s, though.
And they did. I don't know. I like the D10s. That is another thing that's unique about this system. It only relies on one type of die. It's a 10-sided polyhedral die. And when you roll the die, unless otherwise specified by your game master, storyteller in this system, anything that is a 6 or above is a success as a standard difficulty. And you compare your number of successes versus either a target number against a static target, or if you're going against another player or another character, the number of successes they've accrued.
Yeah.
Long day?
It's been a long week, we'll put it that way.
And the game has had a lot of popular success. It was actually the winner of the Origins Award in 1992 as Best Role-Playing System.
Yeah, I mean...
Crickets, just crickets.
I gotta say, though, like... When I first heard about Vampire, I wasn't quite sure what to expect, and then actually getting my feet wet and playing... I actually played, Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines on the computer first, had no idea it was a tabletop game, and they tried to recreate it very faithfully with the character sheet with the dots and whatnot.
Yep. Which actually leads to we had another friend of ours, if you're familiar with our Cinema Synergy channel, Ryan, the first time I got him to sit down and play this. We went through all the mechanics of how the game worked, and we went through the building of a character, and then he sat down and said to me, "What do vampires do?" And I didn't have a good answer for him because it's an open world game. That's like asking, what does the Dragonborn do?
Gets born from dragons.
But we've had more time to go over that and do more reading and about it. So look in the future where we do a quick run. What do vampires do? Because that's a story in and of itself.
Dick each other over for all eternity.
Pretty much.
Greg could sum it up very quickly in
Pretty
one
much
sentence.
that.
I see you want to do X. Well, you doing X doesn't work in my interest, so I'm going to engage in plans Y, Z, and A4 to make sure you don't get to do X.
Political, backstabby.
It's a very political, backstabby game. If you're not into politics and intrigue, go play Mutants and Masterminds.
Autarchus life!
You'll get pulled into the intrigues one way or the other.
Yeah, but I'm getting paid.
I'm not really into like the politically stuff and whatnot, but I still enjoy doing it. I mean, yeah, you might have a political character over here, but the political character also needs someone on his side who can rip someone in half, and I might be that guy.
And the political character's head also explodes like any other person's when a high-powered rifle round is put through
And
it.
sometimes the political character needs a couple of patsies. The game has gone through several editions. Like I said, this is revised or third edition. We mentioned the first edition came out in 1991, and they updated it in 1992 with some new lore and rebalanced some of the powers. And then further rebalanced the rebalancing when it turned out in the second edition that everything was super unbalanced.
That's right.
Come on, Trev. I finished mine.
And then...
They came out with a anniversary edition here.
I was getting to that.
Oh.
After revised edition, in 2004, we've already mentioned White Wolf discontinued all this in favor of the Vampire the Requiem stuff. Including a very... very populous live-action role-playing community.
The Mind's Eye Theater.
Mind's Eye Theater and that. LARPers. And we'll address that another time. Because that's a different...
We'll LARP it out.
That's a different beast. Ooh.
You'll LARP it out. I have better things to do.
But they retired all of this, and when all of that was said and done, it kind of killed White Wolf Publishing as a company. They were... I hesitate to use the term bought up, but that's functionally what happened, by another company called Onyx Path, who stripped down the publishing company to basically two guys sitting in a room who were archivists, keeping the stuff up to date on computers and doing print on demand, which is where you can still find most stuff at drivethroughrpg.com, link down below.
Print on demand is I like it, but I
and
don't want to
despite the fact that in 2014 they did come out with the 20th anniversary edition that you started to mention, or 4th edition if you prefer.
Basically,
and they kept the print on demand model. Again, drivethroughrpg.com, you can get all of it very affordably for the most part.
But what I took away from the anniversary edition is the fact that you could take Masquerade and interchange it with Requiem, and Requiem you can interchange it with Masquerade.
That was kind of the intent.
Yeah, they had the rules for that and whatnot.
It does also update, stuff that's been happening in the last, decade since they printed another book.
It turns out, no, that wasn't Gehenna. It was almost Gehenna.
It was a Gehenna-like event, but not the actual end of the world. The vampires carry on.
And also, they just recently opened what was the Storyteller's Vault.
We'll talk about the Storyteller's Vault in a different video, because we're already running over our time here.
But
it's an interesting idea, but I'm not completely sold on it.
But the community is very much alive for this.
Mm-hmm. Or undead.
I will just slap the shit out of you.
Really? Right all over his book? You know better.
Anyways. Yeah, we're going to cut this here. Look for...
We could sit here and talk about this for hours and not even scratch the surface. It's a wonderful system. We love it. At least give it a read through before you...
Yeah. Look for a part 2, because we've got a lot more to say. That...
I mean, if you're looking for Twilight the role-playing game, fuck
off.
This isn't it.
Just, yeah. Tell us about your experience with Vampire, with White Wolf, with
what's your
any tabletop, and clans. Just, we love hearing stories
memorable
like
characters,
this.
memorable backstory, or backstabs.
And
Death Raven, the Celtic Immortal need not apply.
We've done the
we'll
war...
explain Death Raven in the next one, too.
We've done the war stories for Shadowrun and whatnot, and people generally have war stories for Vampire.
Oh, yeah.
Tell us those stories. We would love them.
I do not have any good war stories.
Okay, bad war stories are good war stories, too.
Not for me.
There were squirrels involved.
Yes.
And bear traps. And...
No, that was World of Darkness.
But it's... Yeah, okay. Anyways, have a good night.
Good night and good gaming.